finally figured out a setting on my microphone that hopefully as I go side to side, if you listen to the recording or whatever, hopefully it captures it. Before I had it, apparently it was centered, just I had literally standing in front of my laptop, but now it should capture their sounds. We'll see if it's any better. I'm hoping it is. We shall see. I love Dilbert, so you're probably going to see more cartoons like this as we go along. Anyway, hopefully you saw, I talked about it last week. I'll just talk about it again just as a reminder. So I adjusted our due dates. So normally, like the assignment that we had doing would have been due yesterday, the day before, but now I bumped it up. So you have a couple extra days. So you have until the 7th. If you've got questions, if you're still stuck on something, we can talk about them today. If anything, it just gives you a couple extra days to get through stuff. I don't want to mess up your weekend, but that's why I gave you until the 7th to do stuff. So it's the midnight and 7th, which is Monday. So at the very least, you can look at stuff, and I get it. You want to have a weekend, so I don't want to mess you up. But I gave you a little extra time, so hopefully that helps. We'll see. So right now, this is week 5, right? We're going to start the new unit, more object concepts. You know, it's kind of just a carryover from what the other one was, using methods, classes, and objects. So we want to make sure you're comfortable with that. If you don't feel comfortable, we want to talk about that. We can go over stuff. That's not a problem. It just kind of more reinforces some of what you've already done in Unit 3, which, again, we can talk about some more. Then next week is making decisions. What that involves, there's like different types of coding structures, logic structures. I don't know if you've looked ahead in the book at all. If-then statements, or statements, switch statements, just ways that in programming you make decisions. We'll talk about that more in depth. And then looping. In looping, there's no assignment necessarily, but it is going to be, you're still going to have knowledge of it, and we'll talk about that also for the midterm. And then reminder, when you do have the midterm, which is actually going to come up in a couple of weeks, I will put it available online, so you do not have to show up. Okay, so I'll make it available. You'll have probably about 7 days at least, maybe 10. I'll probably put it out right away, and then you'll have, until the following class meets, so you have extra time. If you have questions, I can answer generic questions, but I can't answer anything too specific about them. And usually they're just a lot of them. It's multiple choice and true/false questions. They might have some little bit of programming logic in it, and ask questions. What would you get if you had this code? What do you think the output would be? Things like that. You're obviously welcome to use your notes and things like that to go through it. So usually it's not too intense. I haven't had too many students complain and yell at me about it in the past. So hopefully it's not too bad. But then again, like I said, for the final project, I think we'll do a project. It won't be an exam. I was going to maybe do some questions in addition to that, but I think I might just stick to the project. We'll talk about that more after the midterm, go through that. Because again, it's a programming class, and I like to do projects. I'm really not that big on the exams, but I still want you to do 2 projects. Any questions on any of that? And again, I'm looking at the screen, and you can't see what I'm doing. Can you? My apologies. I'm recording it, but you have no idea what I'm doing. I just started looking at the screen. I'm so sorry. All I did was show the schedule. So, any questions on the schedule now that you can see it better? It's fine. I'm looking right at it, and I'm not making the connection that you can't see it. I apologize. So then you missed this too. You gotta see that, otherwise it's no fun, right? Anyway, I will have you know. I don't know if you've heard of team programming. I call it agile programming, team programming. I don't know if you've ever been in a place where they do that, or if you've ever heard of it. It's very popular, and part of the reasons I may have brought this up before is it allows you potentially to work together. And it automatically cross-trains you at the same time. So I could work with somebody else, and one person would write the code, would actually be typing at the keyboard, and the other person would be looking at the documentation, whatever, the specs of what they need to do, and they work back and forth. And then you might do that for a couple hours, and then you would switch. then the other person would do it. Or maybe you would do it for the whole day. It just depends on what your setup is. And the idea is you're helping each other, you're both learning the same, understanding the same system, and you're being cross-trained, and one person's helping it, and so it's a mutual benefit. And supposedly it's better code and it's faster. There's been a lot of studies about it versus just one person, one developer, which is the traditional way. You just sit by yourself, you do your thing, and then when it's done, someone else may do a QA and look at it for testing, that kind of thing. It just depends on, the staff and how big your programming staff is. I've worked in companies where we've had as many as 30 developers, which isn't really a lot, but it can be. And so sometimes they'll get a project, they may have a couple of you working together. But usually by a couple working together, what they mean is you're just working on the same project, you're not really writing code together at the same time. So when I was doing a lot of development, it was kind of a new concept. Now it's much more just a common thing, but still a lot of shops don't do that necessarily. They don't have that. But still, I think it's beneficial. It can be, at least. So you just missed us talking about the schedule. Just talking about scheduling items and things like that, and where we're going and what we're going to be doing, that kind of thing. So actually, I did want to, just for review and just to get you kind of ease into stuff, because it is Friday, I wanted to do a Kahoot if you're up for it, on chapter 3. Kind of get us into the mode, and then we can jump into chapter 4. It's only, I think, 5 or 6 questions. And we like the music so much. It's so delightful. And I'm just going to keep recording this because for the benefit of those online, at least I can see what's going on too. But I might pause it for the moment. Okay, so our huge group of 5. Let's go. 6 questions. Nice. Sweet. You guys actually listen to what I say, and you guys are awesome. You guys are great. That's a rarity. We don't usually have that. That's cool. Nice. Very nice. So that's just about speed, who is fast, but that's okay. Very nice. Yay. It's all right. Yeah. So all you do is you look at the parameters that are in there. So int. It doesn't even matter what they're called. So int and string. So all you do is find one that's doing int and string. So the first one in this one, it's not an int, it's a string because it's in quotes. Then this one over here on the right, it's got an I and name. I don't know what those are. They could be anything. I did that on purpose to throw it. And then this one, okay, 55, there's an int and then quotes string. So, and you could check the last one, obviously none of the above. So yeah, it's that one. Cool. It's all right. Creating instances of classes. Okay, yeah, the red one kind of throws students off sometimes. So remember, it's always the class. The class is always in there twice. So in this case, the class is zombie. So zombie, whatever you're going to call it. In this case, we call it Kevin equals new instance of that class. That's it. There's a way to create a class with 2 lines, but for 1 line, that's the way you've got to do it. No problem. On fire. Fiona's on fire. Right. So no other classes can access that. When it's private, it's just in that class that you've actually declared it. We were kind of talking about that before. We were playing with when we created a method, the class that made sure that when you did it, and if you changed it from public to private, no other classes could access it. Again, it's just some of this just takes practice. You want to switch? Fiona's still on fire though. Nice. 2 more. You guys are fast. Yeah, local, think about it. Just think about the name. Local is local. It cannot be accessed anywhere. So it is local to that method or to that class. Now there's things that you can do, so it wasn't necessarily a trick question, but typically just think of local. There's also in programming global, and a lot of times you don't want to create a global variable unless you absolutely have to. I think I bring it up a lot of times is when you're logging into a system, like your user ID, things like that, so it tracks you through the system. That would be a great example of a global value variable. But typically a local variable, just by the term local by itself, just think it's just, that's it. Getting closer, getting tight. This is it, last one, toughest one.
I guess. I didn't even think about it.
Yes. That's all right. Just having some fun. I honestly don't know what the true amount is, if that would even ever happen. So don't worry about it. Yeah. So nice, cool, excellent, good. So we're not too far off. We were just talking before you two came, just about we're in week 5 and just how it's going. How are things going with your other classes? Did you? Recording this. Okay, so more object concepts. Again, it's just more about the same, but getting into some other areas with block and scope, overloading methods, avoiding ambiguity, and some of this you might not know what I'm talking about until we get into it. Don't worry about it. Creating calling constructors with parameters, the this reference, static fields, well, a lot of fun stuff. But this is just, again, it's not just specific to Java. All object-oriented programs have a variety of this, not maybe exactly the same way, but they do. So with blocks, what they're saying is it's just a section of code. That's all it is. And you can block things off is what they call it, and use the curly braces to do that. And the reason you can manipulate stuff, you can do stuff with variables that way if you want to, but it's just understanding where your curly braces are. And so they talk about using outside block and inside block and nested blocks, just different types of block. It's just syntax. Don't let that throw you off. And they're going to show you here an example with the block. So you've got your outer block is what we're used to seeing, public static void. This one's method. And then here's my curly brace at the top here, right there where my little mouse is going. Yeah, you can see it good. I declare a variable int, a number is 10. Now that is now declared in memory, so a number is equal to 10. It comes in, that's my outer block. And then what it does is it's just going to print this value out. So you should be able to look at the code and walk through it and see so it should print in outer block a number is 10. And we can literally take this code and throw it in a program and test it. Then it comes into the inner block. So inside the inner block, it creates another integer variable, integer equals 512. But I'm in the inside block. Okay, so another variable comes into existence. And they play with, they print out what that is. It's 512, and then it shows you what that one is and the other one is. So it shows you both numbers, what they are. And then finally, you pop back out in the outer block. What is a number again? And then finally, it says a number ceases to exist. So understanding when variables come into existence, when they're created and they're in a block, and when they go out, when that block ends, they disappear. That's it. The only difference what's going on here for what you're used to doing with some of your coding is now you're just adding extra curly braces inside of these methods for a variety of reasons. It could be any number of reasons why you would do that. For scope, if you're playing with stuff, and the book talks about scope. Scope is a big thing in programming. Understanding that when you create a variable, where I can and can't use it, just like I just did the thing with the local variable. What's the scope of that? Can I use it through my whole project, or is it just for this one method? That kind of thing. Or how we did it where we had a variable in one, we had a class, and then we called another method from another class. So it called that one. So even though there were variables that were in the other class, it still referenced it, and you can still do that. So things like that. Let's see here. And yes, we're going to do some code here, but I wanted to talk about a couple things here before we jumped into. You know what, let's do this. Let's just jump into the UDOIT demonstrating scope, because then we can play with that. I'd rather do that than just sit here and blah, blah, blah. JGrass. So we're going to create a new program, and we'll do the one on page 177, and this is the demo block. So we'll do file. Maybe we won't. Maybe I won't do it. Hang on, I'm all discombobulated. After these messages, we'll be right back. Okay, let's try this again. All right, file, thank you, new, thank you. Now we're gonna cooperate. All right, let's make it bigger. Let's just, give me one, you know what, I'm gonna record. All right, so we're gonna create the class, public, geez, I typed. It's really acting up on me. Public class, and this is called demo block, right? And we'll talk about different things. Again, open curly, close curly, right? So right now, just by doing this is what we've been doing, you've got your block of code. And again, if I go and I kind of highlight that, you can see where the beginning and the ending is. It's kind of nice. A lot of times what I've gotten used to, and I'm going to probably encourage this, you don't have to do this, but this is something you might want to consider doing as your programs get longer, is at the bottom of the block, I might do a / for a comment, and I might say end demo block. Because then it tells you that that curly brace is associated with this one at the top. Because once your code gets really big, I can't see it anymore, right? I don't know where it is. And then I'm all the way at the bottom looking at a whole bunch of code. And I'm like, oh, here's a curly brace. What does this go to? Oh, look at it. It goes to end demo block. Okay, sweet. I've got it. Now, and part of it too, I guess, depends on how much you want to indent, those kinds of things. I'm a huge proponent of indenting. Just makes life, I think it makes life easier. Again, the computer doesn't care. It's really all about you. So we're going to do that. So then we're going to do our public. I tabbed in public static void main. And I've been catching up on the homework. I think I graded everything so far, and I want to say everybody, it's great. I did send an email out, and if you saw it, asking you to please include screenshots in your stuff. So you don't have to do the code necessarily as much as just show me your program running, and I can see what's going on. But obviously, if you've already submitted stuff and you didn't do that, that's fine. Don't have to redo it. Okay, I'm going to say, ooh, crying baby. Oh, that's too bad. You're upset about Java, probably. I don't know. Demo block. I'm going to save it as demo block. Let's save that. Yeah, I'm going to overwrite everything. Okay, so they want us to just do a print. System.out.println demonstrating scope. Okay, that's it. And then we're going to create a couple variables. Actually, just going to do the X, which is kind of boring. Well, it's okay. 1, 1, 1, 1. It's a binary. You guys ever do binary math? Yeah, not terribly exciting. Can be kind of grueling. Okay, so in the first block. So in first block, X equals what? Plus X. So we'll just spit out the value of X. And we're going to play with some of this too, not just exactly according to what the book has, because I think it's a great example to play with it so you can see exactly what's going on. All right, so now we're in here. So now let's do this. And again, like I say, let's compile it. Let's build it. And then, oh, I had an error. Yep, because I didn't put int in front of it. The book says int, and I didn't do it. Naughty, naughty, naughty. Okay, let's try it again. Compile. Yay, run it. Okay, so we get a very exciting message demonstrating scope in first block. X is 1111. Okay, So now what they're going to do is they want you to create a second block. I'm already indented, so I just open curly, and then I indent in there. And then we create another variable, integer y is equal to 2222. Okay. And this time we're going to print out system.out.println. And this is again going to be in, I'll say second block. I'm just going to do shorthand. X is equal to, what's X? Okay, X, just same way. You can feel free to copy and paste. But I'm going to line it back up so it looks pretty. I like it when it looks pretty. Second block, Y, so we can see what's going on. And again, I'm a big proponent of this anyway when I do my code. So I've got my X and I've got my Y, right? Let's compile it. Let's build it. Oh, yeah. See what I missed? It reached the end of the file. I got some weird error. It came down here. You see what I missed? What's that? Yes. Thank you. I didn't do it on purpose. I did it accidentally, actually. So here's my first one, right? So here's my second one. So what I should do again here is do this. Do slash. And I don't know, what is this, the outside block? I'll call this block 1 and block. Oh, and no, this is main, right? So I'll do end main block. How about that? Okay, so that I know that's there. And then I've got this block right here. So come after here and then close that one up. And then I'm going to do end. I don't know, I'll call it Y block. I don't know what else to call it. So we've got 3 blocks. We got the main, which you're going to have anyway. That's your class. Then you're going to have the main right there. There's your block there. And then you've got the Y. Now, I will tell you, depending on what you're doing, you may not do this that often, if ever, just to let you know. It just depends on your situation and what the code is and what's going on. It's not something I find I was ever doing frequently, ever. It just depends. There's other ways to do things, but this is, again, it's just another tool in your toolbox, potentially, for coding. So now I'm going to run this again. I'm going to build it. Make sure I have everything. Yay. So as you can see now, it's good that I keep trying to build it and run it along the way, because I keep messing up. Okay, so I get my first block. That's 1111. Okay, and then it comes down to here. Then I get Y is 2222, and then notice, okay, it shows, so it still has, X is still 1111. I'm inside this other block, but it's kept X, the value of X, so that's there. Okay. So now they're going to get even more annoying. And they're going to add another block. So I'm going to bring this down so it's easier to see. I'm going to come after the Y block, open another curly brace, and tab in. And this is going to be int. And they're going to do Y again. So I can't use Y block. Boogers. Why'd they do that? So system.out.println. And this is going to be third block. X is equal to, quote, plus X. I'm going to copy and paste because I'm lazy. No, I'm not lazy. I'm efficient, right? That's what you say. You're efficient. Stop it. If you ever want to indent something, what you can do is I do tab to go one way. If you do shift tab, it brings it right back. So you can, it's a nice quick way of doing that if you didn't already know that. Because sometimes the format, again, it's just for me. So third block, it gets Y. Then they're going to have what's called a method, which doesn't exist yet. So you know how I feel about that. So we're going to do demo method. And I'm going to comment it out because we haven't created it yet. And it's going to give us an error. All right, let's just do this, and I'm gonna end this. We got to end this block. All right, close curly, and this is third block. I should have said that before. End third block. Okay, I'm going to change this one to end second block. You don't have to. I'm just doing that for myself. So you get the first block. This is going to end my second block. So there's my second block. And then here's my third block right there. All right. Again, let's just make sure everything runs and doesn't blow up on us. It ran, peachy, and it compiled rather. Okay, there we go. So you just make sure. So first block, X is 1111. Here's my seconds. So X retained its value, and now Y is 2222. And then third block, again, X retained its value again, and Y is 3333. Notice I keep redeclaring Y. Y. I declared Y in here. That's okay. I declared it in there. That's fine. Okay? Doesn't matter. And out here, X is just never changed. And again, we're going to play with some other stuff too. Let's do this. Let's do the... well, we'll finish. Let's come back up here by demo block, and we're going to finish some stuff here. Let's do system, .out.print, and say after method. After method, X equals X. And that the other one is going to say is to be for Y. So I'm going to copy and paste this line again. Control C, Control V. Fine, be that way. Shift tab, Shift tab, Shift tab. Y. Okay. All right. So it's just going to ask what Y is. So here's the deal. I can build this just to make sure I did this syntactically correct. Everything builds fine. But now we got to create this demo method because otherwise these little lines don't really mean much. Okay. So we got to create a demo method, which is going to be out. But first they want us to do one more thing out here. I'm still in the main. I'm still in main. So right above main, I'm going to do a line. And they want us to do a system .out.print. A lot of printing, right? And when you get better at some of the stuff like debugging, a lot of stuff you can just do. Debugging. You don't have to do all this kind of stuff. At the end, X is quote plus X. And there you go. Again, I'm gonna build it, make sure it builds. I know I only had one line of code, but again, I didn't want to screw anything up. Like so. I'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see it better. Okay. All right, so this is all part of the main block. I'm going to come out here, and we're going to create another method. I'm staying in the class. I should change this to end demo block class right there. And this is the main block method right here, right? So remember, we're in the demo block class, but I'm in this method. So now I want to create another method in the same class. That's why I did that there. So they want us to create something called demo method. So fine. So we're going to say public static void demo method. We're not passing any parameters or any arguments, so it's just empty parentheses, open curly and close curly. And then inside this method, guess what? We're going to assign values to X. We're declaring X is equal to, was it 8888? I'm putting this on two different lines. I like to do that. I don't like to have it all in one line. You don't have to do that. That's what I do. I just like to make it really obvious. I'm slow that way. Print line. Okay, in demo method, X equals quote plus X. And then guess what? Do the same thing for Y. So I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste that. And in demo method, Y is equal to Y. Okay. So I have the method. I think I've got my curlies. There's my curlies. I did that. Everything's good. So we have 4 lines in there. Let's build it. If you build it, they will come. Being slow. There we go. So it built it. Yay. All right. So I think we're actually ready to run the whole thing. Right? I'm not calling it though yet, am I? So I have to go back up and I have to uncomment it out. So don't forget to do that if you've did what I did. If you done-doed it, done-undoed it. Okay. Question? I'm sorry. Oh, you're just stretching?
What applications would you use to enter your block for?
Well, like I was saying, it just depends on what you're doing. Again, if you want to isolate code or isolate values, you can use an inner block to do that. I didn't find a lot of need for that, to be honest with you. Rarely you find code. Sometimes what people will do is just create different methods to do that.
Yeah.
It's just another way of doing certain things. And so it's like I said, it's like another tool in your toolbox where if you want to do some other calculations in this case or whatever, you can do it this way. Personally, I don't like this. I find it confusing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of code. You got a lot of curly braces. I have a hard enough time keeping the regular curly braces straight, right? And this is why I started doing this with the end blocks and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but I'm showing it to you because it's it's something that you could see.
No, it's good. Rather than yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, yeah. And and part of it, again, you'll see, and this kind of ties into what we were talking about before about scope, going in and out of scope. So we'll see, and you can manipulate stuff, and people forget that they create a variable, and all of a sudden it gets changed, and they don't realize why it changed, or things like that, or they keep using the same variable throughout, and you're like, ugh. Which you can do. Again, I don't like to do that either. So you have to develop your own thing, but and again, the last thing I guess I'll say from my experience, what I've seen is typically what you like to do is you do not like to just keep creating y. You would have different variables, and obviously they would be named something appropriate, something that makes sense to you, like an interest rate or an age or salary or something like that made sense, not just x or y. Because I have had students who will create programs, these incredibly big programs, and then they'll have a variable called a. I'm like, well, what the heck is that? Is that a character? Is it a string? Because I can't tell anything from it. It's not descriptive. It doesn't tell me your data type. Doesn't tell me anything. And so that's why I don't even like these y's, obviously, because it doesn't tell me anything. And that's why I like to preface it. And a lot of programmers do that. They'll put like an I in front of it for integer, B in front of it for Boolean. And I've started doing some of that with you. I'm just kind of following the book with some of this, but that's my recommendation. Best practice is you should be able to look at a variable, and hopefully it's short, that immediately tells you the data type it is and potentially what it's used for. You might not know the whole story, but at least you have an idea. Oh, here, I'll just create one right here. Int IH, right? So if I did that, I wouldn't have to tell you anything. You could see that variable right off the bat, right? And you don't have to go hunt me down and say, hey, Chris, you have a variable called IH. Well, what is that for? Right away, potentially it's an integer if you know my coding, and then it's probably about age, right? You might not know how it fits in, but at least you have an idea. If I create a variable and all it says is like C, you're like, well, what the heck are you doing with that? Then you got to go through all the code and you got to figure out what it's being used for. That's a headache. And guess what? In 6 months after you write this, you're going to have to go and do the same thing because you're going to forget it all. Because trust me, I've done that. I like to ask my students this all the time. Side note, but I'll leave it recording. Do you remember what you did last week? I get all these smiles. Yeah, see, I'm telling you, our days are so full of stuff. I'm trying to remember what I did yesterday, much less last week. And if I start going day by day, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember I did that, or I did this, or right. So so imagine you're involved with a whole bunch of different projects, and you get tossed in. You might be on one project for a while, and then that's great. But sometimes it's usually not the case. You get involved in multiple projects, and you might get pulled off on different things all the time. Your brain is going crazy, and then you're trying to remember the code. And then someone's going to come up to you like 6 months or a year down the road and say, hey, do you remember that subroutine you wrote for that mortgage application you did? And you're going to be like, yeah. Your brain's going to start freaking out. Let me go look at it. And I've had to just go look at my code and see it and be like, oh yeah, I remember that. I don't remember, So anyway, I digress. All right, let's run this puppy. Yeah, so again, long story to make it longer is I don't like these. Doesn't mean that they're wrong or anything like that. It's just everybody has their own style. Okay, so we printed this. Let's see what it does. So we got the scope. Okay, we know this, right? First block, we have 1111. Second block, we get the same thing. We get 11, 11, and 22, 22, which makes sense, right? I'm in there. Third block, 11, 11, 33, 33, right? Because y is 33, 33. Then it goes into the demo block, right? And guess what? In the demo method, rather, it goes down there and it hits, now x is 88, 88. So x is now changed for the first time in the demo method, 88, 88, right? Then it pops back out, and then it says, what is x after the method? Guess what? X is back to 11, 11, the scope. The scope for x was only changed in the method. That's it. So once it comes back out, it goes back to what it was. It doesn't change. And y is the same way. Y doesn't change either. Y stays the same. So these lines right here, even after the method, they never changed. Now there's ways to change that. You can do that, but in this case, it doesn't change. And then finally at the end, x is 11, 11. So even after all that rigmarole, x is still where it was at the beginning. Those things are important to just understand that flow, so that when you do something like this, you'll know that the value you're getting is what you expect. And I joke all the time, I say, like a lawyer, I don't know if it's true because I'm not a lawyer, is they already know the answer to the question before they ask it, so they're not surprised. As a programmer, you should know the output potentially before you even run the program. Now, as a developer, I can tell you for years that it doesn't always work that way, but that's where you end up tracing stuff, but at least you should have an idea, roughly, of what is or isn't. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense. And again, it's a nice way to just play with stuff and manipulate it and figure out inside and outside what's going on of different things. And again, in each block, you can change x. You can reinitialize x too. So int x is up there. So I can go in demo block 2, and I can do this. I can say int x is equal to, I don't know, say 0, right? So now I should get, in block 2, I should get x is 0. I'm going to run this. I'm going to build it. No. Oh, no. Yeah. It's already defined in the main, so it won't let me do that there. Right? Because it's defined in the main, it gives me an error. When you define them within the blocks, it's okay, but once you have something defined outside the block at the main method level, it's going to choke, and it says you can't do that. It's already defined there. So I can't do that. It's redefining it. So I can't do that like that. I would have to pull x out of here, and I'd have to bring it into one of the methods, and then I could do the same thing it was with y. And that's why they did that. So they can show you one way is x you can change, one way x stays the same, but now x changes. How does it change? X changes by jumping in this demo method. And now all of a sudden it changed because it came out of there. We call this method. So fun stuff, huh? Yeah, I know, crazy. Yeah, and the curly braces drive me crazy. It's not easy, and again, like you see, and that's why I did these end block stuff. I highly recommend doing something like that to help you. However you want to notate it, whatever works for you is fine. It just helps you keep some sanity. This is pretty easy because it's so small. You could do an end demo method here if you wanted to. You don't have to, but just gives you an idea. All right. So that's what a lot of this stuff is, block and scope. I'm not going to go through all this again. We just talked about coming in and out of scope, variables coming out of existence. That's the whole idea. This is something we just showed you. I kind of just did it just to show you, but here they're redeclaring the same value, like that. Now I could do this. I could go back to our code and I could do this. So here's x is 11, 11, but I can say x is equal to 0 right there, right? That should work, shouldn't it? I'm not redeclaring it, I'm reassigning it. So now if I run it, if I compile it, it compiles. And now if I run it, guess what? So x starts off as, in the first block, x is 11, 11. First block, x is 11, 11 right there. But guess what? In the second block, x is now 0. And guess what? In the third block, it's still 0. It didn't change, right? And then it goes to its demo method. It does its thing. X comes back out. It's still 0, 0, 0. And then all the way at the end is 0. So it changes in the first block. It goes 1111, and then it changes. So you can mess around with whatever you want. You just can't redeclare it. So now I'll just comment that out to show you that I was testing with that. And again, if you're doing stuff like that, again, I highly recommend do a little comment for testing purposes or whatever, and then you put your initials or something like that, and even a date. I'll do that. I'll say 10/4/2019. I cannot believe it's October 4th already. It's crazy. Man, this year's flying by like that. Again, anytime you comment, it's just nice because, again, like I said, when your program starts to get larger and you have a lot of programs that you're working with, a lot of code, you have a big code base, it's nice to just do a search, and sometimes you can just search for your initials, and then you can find what changes you made. Now, there's other ways of doing that too. There's something called source control I've been bringing up. I was going to introduce and have you guys maybe work with Git or something like that. I don't want to throw too much at you, but that's a really common one that's used to help you maintain your code. While we're talking about stuff, let's go look at the assignments. Let's take a quick. Let's go back. Let's go. So this week, learning units, unit 4. We're talking about, so here are the U-Do-Its that we started doing, demo block, and we're going to do demo overload. I think we'll be able to finish all these today. And then car insurance policy and create policies. Again, please include screenshots if you can. You do not have to zip up the Word file. All you need is a separate Word file, and just put in there and just upload that. And it's really kind of nice. I can view it right out of Blackboard. The exercises then, there's just 2 exercises. It's a form letter and a billing program. There's 2 of them. Again, same thing, write the code, and then you can upload that. There's 2 exercises. And then the other thing I was going to tell you about, I talked to you before about the different IDEs, NetBeans and Eclipse. These are links to them. If you want extra credit, you have until the end of the semester. If you want to do it, you can install it. Just send me a screenshot of your installation if you want. If you've already installed it, if you're already using one of them, just send me a screenshot of what you got. It's not a problem. It's extra credit. It's whether or not some students do it and then they find out they like it a lot. And if you want me to go through any of them, I'd be happy to. Again, it's another interface. I just don't want to overwhelm you. Because some of you are maybe just getting comfortable now with JGrasp and just learning programming. But if you want to, I'd be happy to go through either one. They're very similar. I did a lot more work with NetBeans for a while, just because that's the vendor I worked with. So some of it also depends on when you're working with people. Some places you go to and they're like a NetBeans shop. They're like, hey, we use NetBeans here. That's what we use. Okay. Or hey, we use Eclipse here. That's what we use. So you learn Eclipse. Or say, you can use whatever you want. And it's like, okay. I could have used what I wanted, but I was working with a consultant, and it was just so much easier for me to use NetBeans at the time because everything, the libraries, everything it made sense. So then when I would send them my code, and when I would write some code and I'd send it to them, there were never any issues about differences between, because there are differences between the 2 products, but they eventually have the same result. No different than JGrasp. JGrasp is very basic, very bare bones, okay? So think about this. JGrasp is a very basic house, right? Eclipse and NetBeans are like a 2-bedroom, 4-bath house with 2-car garage, maybe with a swimming pool. I mean, they add that much more stuff to it, right? That's kind of the idea. With more stuff, though, because more things, too, you have to worry about. So just something to think about. And again, if you want to do this, we can do this. I used to have a video showing about some of the install. The install process is actually really straightforward. In fact, here, I'll click on NetBeans. And you can just install like the latest version. They've got all this information. I thought it was going to go right to download. You go up here, usually goes right to downloads here. Download. There's different builds. If I could just go to download here, it's the same page. Just released Apache NetBeans 1.1.1. Oh, okay. So NetBeans 11. If you've never downloaded this is open source. This is free. It doesn't cost anything. Just something to be aware of is usually I like to get something that is stable. So they'll have typically the stable release out there, but they might have beta releases. I don't recommend beta releases unless you really know what you're doing, because sometimes it doesn't quite work right, and I don't want you to mess up your system. That's all. So I would just come here and I'd look at, okay, Sure, NetBeans 11, download. And then they have a whole bunch of different options. You'll notice down here, these are these installers. So I'm running Windows 64-bit, and I would probably choose this one, Apache NetBeans Binary x64 right there. You can also do Linux, and you can also do on the Mac. So if you have a Mac, you can do that. You can do it at home. You can have it on everything. It's great. And it kind of just takes you through this stuff. Now, the only thing is, when you do this, it needs the JDK. So these computers that have JGrasp on them here already have the Java Development Kit, JDK, installed on them. And again, that's not a big deal. You just download that, install it. And usually I recommend is you download that first. If you've already got it, then you can do it. So if you're running JGrasp already on your laptop or at home, you've got no problems. You just can just install NetBeans and it'll see it. It'll find it for you. And Eclipse does the same type of thing. In fact, I'll just click on Eclipse just to really show you. Go on Eclipse. So you notice already it's a little bit different. Here you go. Get your favorite desktop IDE, download 64-bit. In fact, this is probably even more direct. Click on download. You'll start asking your questions. Yeah, allow cookies. And then I can download what I want. Or get it faster from our members, so if you go to what are called mirror sites, different sites that they have it. So you can just download that. I would recommend being on a high-speed connection somewhere. Do it here or something, or someplace else if you don't. So that's just an option if you want to. I did a lot with NetBeans, but I've been doing a lot more with Eclipse. Eclipse is used a lot for Android developers. But then you've got Android Development Studio, which moves. So everybody was doing Eclipse, but then they did Android Development Studio, which uses Java to do that. So they kind of went to that thing. So that was what Eclipse was a lot more for. You know what? Personally, I would recommend learn a little bit of both. But if you want to be stronger in one, if you like Eclipse better or you like NetBeans better, that's fine. But it looks good on your resume if you say, yeah, I know NetBeans and I know Eclipse and I know that. You don't have to be an expert. Right now, you can already say, I know JGrasp. I mean, you're coding in applications, even though it's schoolwork. You're writing applications that are running and have to be, turned in. And then the other thing, so it always looks good. And these are buzzwords. These days when they scan your resume, it's a computer that does all that stuff, right? The human beings don't even look at your stuff anymore, which is really sad. But I get it. So they just do it. They scan for the buzzwords. They scan for, Java, NetBeans. And I'm telling you, update your LinkedIn profiles if you can, even though you're in school, whatever. Put those coding languages in there. My thing is out there, so if you ever want to look, you can look at my profile. Just don't mock me too much, I appreciate it. But it shows you different coding, databases that you learn, anything like that, any technology, because they scan for that. And I will tell you, you will get emails or contact from recruiters on a weekly basis if they start to see you having these technologies in your repertoire. It's amazing, because they cannot find enough people. It's crazy. I mean, I get recruiter call all the time. And I'm not saying it to brag. I'm just saying it's a reality. It is what it is. And it's also good. It reinforces that you're learning what you should be learning, right? You're not in some obsolete technology. So that's good too. Because let me tell you, if you're doing something obsolete, you're not going to have a job for a long time. And so you're going to want to stay as current. You want to keep current. You have to in this field. Oh, I digress. You know what? I'll tell you what. Let's take a break. I've been jibber-jabbering. I know we started a little. What I'm going to do too, I think, is we're just talking about Eclipse and NetBeans. I was talking with Joe about, and I don't know if any of you have any other needs specifically. He's going to be using Eclipse at his job. And so I thought what we could do is we'll do the next, when we get to it in a minute, we'll do the next, we'll do it in JGrasp together like that. But then I'll show you the exact same thing, but doing it in Eclipse. So you get both experiences. It'll take a little extra time, but it shouldn't take very long. But it'll show you. And you can see the differences then. And you should all have Eclipse loaded on your laptop. And I don't know, you probably don't have it on your laptop, so if you want to use the desktop, or you can watch. You don't have to do it, but I just want to show you an example of using the IDE and how it would look differently. So let's just talk about the scope and stuff here. So overloading a method. Part of the idea with object-oriented programming is you can use one term and have different meanings, different diverse meanings is what they say. Writing multiple methods with the same name is kind of cool, but different arguments. And the reason behind that, again, it's to not have to keep rewriting the same thing over and over again. I gotta stand, I can't sit, I'm going crazy. So, and the compiler understands that. So you can have one method potentially with, and you're gonna do this in one of your examples with, it may have one argument one time, and then another time may have two arguments, and another 3 times. I mean, you can do all this crazy stuff, but it's the same method name, nothing's changed. And that's what's called overloading a method. And again, like I said, it's convenient for a programmer to use one name for that, even though it's functionally identical. And the idea is, again, you're reusing code. That's the whole idea behind it. You're reusing code. Just like I say, whenever you see similar lines of code that you've written anywhere in your program, then you have to start to think about, should that be a function or something like that, right? You never want to have the same lines of code anywhere. It should never be that way, obviously other than the print, right? But I mean, anytime you start seeing things where you're doing it once or twice, you're like, wait a minute, I did this up there. Maybe I should pull these out, make a function. You have that one line of code wherever there, or 2 lines of code, and then you can call it, right? So same idea. And this takes time and experience for some of this stuff, so don't worry about it. It just takes experience to understand when you shouldn't do some of these things. The idea is you may encounter this code and other code you may see, and that's what's going on. So a lot of this is just to prepare you, because if you go into a situation as a new developer, new programmer, however you want to say it, you'll see code, and you just want to understand what's going on, because typically when you go into a new situation, they're going to have you do a lot of maintenance, right? You're going to go in, you're going to look at code, and they'll say, can you fix this? Can you add this to this or tweak this? Rarely when you start off, they're going to have you write something brand new from scratch. It just doesn't happen because you don't have the experience. I did coding when I switched over my career way back when. I did a lot of technical support, I did a lot of script writing, but then I started off and they had me do a lot of maintenance. But then within about a year, 6 months to a year, I got teamed up with another manager and I got to write something from scratch. And that was a big deal. I mean, because you're creating everything, which is so cool, and it's all yours and it's from scratch. That doesn't typically happen. I got really lucky. It was a small startup that I worked for, so there wasn't like this huge team of developers. That is one of the benefits, I will say, about working for a small company, is you get to potentially wear many hats. So I learned about clients, I learned about servers, I learned about databases, I learned about networking, I learned about wire, I learned about everything. I mean, it was awesome. And it got to the point where they're like, hey, does anybody know how to do this? Does anybody know, and literally, if you were interested, you raise your hand and they'll figure it out. That was awesome. Big corporations, that never happens, right? Because they have people dedicated to that and they don't want you to start messing around. You're a developer, you shouldn't touch this, or you do networking, you shouldn't. So you have to figure out. So sometimes, depending on what you want to do. Anyway, again, I digress. So they're going to talk about overloading. This is a calculate interest method, and it's got 2 double parameters. So double for balance and one's for rate. And it's just going to calculate interest, right? And it's a void method, which means it's not going to return anything, right? It's just doing a calculation. It's getting passed in a balance and an interest rate. It's doing the calculation and it just prints it out. Okay, so nothing is being returned. It's a void. Okay. If it just had one version, they said, you could do a lot of different things with it. And they're going to show us here. Let's see. So here they could have a simple method where I've got a parameter, a double. Okay, just a double that's getting sent in. Okay. No, they're not going to show you. So we're just going to have to do it. We'll do it. I don't like these PowerPoints. They drive me crazy. So let's just do it. I like writing code. All right. So we're going to get into overloading. It's called demo overload. Almost sounds like demo overlord, right? Or something like that. Some type of game or something. Overlord. Nah. Okay. So we're going to do this first in JGrass. We're going to do File, New, and we're going to say, great, Java. This menu drives me crazy. And yes, I'm going to sit again. You're making me sit too much. Okay. All right. So we're going to create this one, and we're going to do this in 2 spots. It's a short one, so it shouldn't be too long. So this is demo overlord. Load. I keep saying that. Sorry. It's not. It's like Freudian slip. Demo. I'm going to type it. Load. Overload. Did I type that right? Sorry. It's Friday. I'm getting goofy. I apologize. We're all entitled, right? Okay. So demo overload. Load. I can't speak. All right. And then we're going to do our public, static, void main, string, and then args. Args. Okay. Haven't done that for a while, right? And then close that. Okay. Okie dokie. Everything's okay. So demo overload class. Everything's set up very basic. I'm going to save this. I'm going to save it. Again, it's going to give me, because I called the class that, so by default, it's going to show up as my file name. I'll click save. I'm going to overwrite mine. You shouldn't get that. Okay. So in the main method, they're going to have us create a variable, actually 3 variables. And I'm just going to do it on 3 lines because I like to do that. Month, and they're going to automatically give it a value of 6. And then again, int, and then day is equal to 24. Again, mine is different from theirs, slightly. And then year is equal to 2019. Now, I just talked about variables being named appropriately. I wouldn't necessarily name these this way. I'm not going to change them because that's how it is in the book. But for like month, I would do this. I would say I month, like that. Now, to me, that I just think that makes more sense. For day, we'll leave it as month, but that's just kind of what I'm saying. We should get, and maybe I should just start changing the way I do it because I don't like the book in some of those respects doing that. I got 3 variables. They're hard coded. We don't hard code. This is bad. One of the professors I've had called these magic variables because just magically all of a sudden you don't hard code anything ever typically unless it's something like states or things like that. And even then, typically you'll pull them out of a database or a file somewhere. You don't want to have why don't you want hard-coded values? Because, let me tell you, you'd have to recompile, right? It changed. If anything changed, you've got to go and you've got to rebuild the darn program, right? And then you got to send it out to your customers. That's a pain in the butt. Anytime you got to rebuild and resend out to your customers, you don't want to have to do that. So when you have hard-coded stuff, if it changes, oh man, the month should be 5, it shouldn't have been 6, man. You got to rebuild the whole thing, which really stinks. But that's one of the main reasons why you don't hard code. Okay, and then they're going to call 3 methods, which we haven't created yet, but I'm just going to do it. So display, date, and the first one it's going to be month. So we're going to do 3 times. Display, date. This is going to get past the month and the day. And then display, date, month, day, and guess what? Year. Yes, you're right. Right? So this is what's called overloaded. It's the same exact name, but we keep changing how many parameters it's in. So now we've got to create 3 methods, one with 1 parameter, one with 2 parameters, and one with 3 parameters. Now this one will be fairly easy because each one is an int. So that's pretty easy. So what we do is we come down here. Now we do it outside the main, right? I'm going to make it a little smaller so you can see this. We come outside the main method. Again, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get used to this. I'm going to say end main method because it's going to get kind of a little bit messy. Again, another way, just something to get into a habit of. When that ends. And then we're going to create public, static, void, display, date. Okay? So the first one is going to be is 1 parameter, and it'll be int, and we'll just say they want to do That's what they're going to do. Again, you can call it anything you want. It's arbitrary. It's just the fact that it's an integer value. Open curly, close curly. And inside them, all they're going to do is spit out what it is. So just say system.out.println, and say event date quote plus plus, so watch your little concatenators. So event date is a string, plus is the variable here that gets passed in right there, plus string again, because we're going to finish the date, /1/ I'm going to say 2019, just to try and keep it a little current, like so. So again, you'll notice that the is the one that's the variable. It changes, right? It changes whatever is entered from the program. Whereas this part is hard-coded. And guess what? we're going to do something very similar for the other two. So you can do a couple things. You can copy the whole thing if you want to. For time, Control-C, copy it, and then paste it. And right now it's the same thing, and I'm going to add another parameter on the second one. And this time it's going to be int dd for the day. And then this gets a little bit messier. So after the mm in there, I'm going to do plus slash plus dd for the day plus, and because I have the dd, I get rid of that /1 right there. That goes bye-bye right there. So mm comes into this and dd comes into this. So mm slash dd slash and then the year. Kind of get the idea, see the pattern? And then finally, again, I'm going to copy this whole thing again, Control-C, and I'm going to paste it. And the last one is 3 parameters. And guess what? It's int yy. Okay? So the last one, you're passing in everything. And really all you do is just hold on to that, keep that last slash, and then do plus, and then yy, and you get rid of the actual year, like that. So this time you get here, is there, dd, and then yy. And then don't forget, these are actual strings, and that's just for formatting, so it looks nice when you print it out. Now I did something that normally I don't do, is we didn't run it at all. We've just been typing, so hopefully everything builds. And I apologize for that. Normally I like to, you know how I like to do that. And I didn't mistype anything. Okay. So make sure your code works. Take your time if you need to. So again, you get used to the fact that it's creating one. This name has not changed. Display date has not changed. The same method, but it's called an overloaded method because one time I'm using 1 parameter, another time I'm using 2 parameters, and then another time I'm using 3. So you can keep going. What's the limit? To be honest with you, I think the limit is like 256 or something. It might be more. I can't remember. But here's the deal. If you find yourself creating a method with, let me just say like 10 or more parameters, then you really got to ask what you're doing with that method. You need to maybe break it up. That's a lot of that's a lot of parameters that you're sending. And typically, you don't want to deal with that many parameters. There's there's not rules, but it's just best practice of what it is. Because again, it gets more difficult to maintain and read and that kind of thing. So let's run this. And very exciting. So the first one comes out as 6/1/2019, right? And the date, the hard-coded date is 6/24. So we changed the month. If the month came in, what's hard-coded? So the month came in, and 1 is hard-coded. That's how we get the 1. Then it has 6/24. It gets passed in, so 24. So 6, it should be 6, and then 24, which it is. And then the last one is that. So we could change it to 2018, whatever. We could change the date, whatever, but to make sure that everything changed, but hopefully you get the idea. That is the concept of it. Does that make sense? This is probably the most basic concept, but this is the idea. Again, you'll find functions out there or methods out there where it's like, hey, it's the same name, but it will have different arguments in there, a different number of arguments for various. So now you can see the developer doesn't have to keep creating the same one. He can use one and just kind of manipulate it the way he wants to, or she wants to. Like so. Okay, let's see, how are we doing here? Because actually after this, we just have, hopefully, I'll get through it. Let's see if we get through everything. Let's see. Okay. So let's do this. This is not a long one, and it's up to you whether or not you want to do it with me. I'll show you. The computers all should have Eclipse on them and NetBeans, and we're going to do this one in Eclipse. So what I'm going to do is, actually, I should have Eclipse on mine. I apologize. I don't know if I have the same version as you. I've got Photon. And so you might have Neon. You might have, I don't know which version that is on there. Mine's June of 2018, so I have an older version probably. We'll have to see. I'm going to pause it. So I've got projects in here already, and you'll notice it's very similar to what you've already seen in JGrass. Okay, I've got all these Java files in here. Demo, loop test. So it's the same code. Everything's the same. It's just a different environment. That's the only difference. Okay. And I'll show you. So what you can do is, if you want to, you can really just kind of even cheat. If you've already got the code written, we're not going to retype this whole thing either. I want to make this smaller. You can do something like this since you've already got it, because I'm going to assume that you have no code in yours. I have mine, but we just type this. So what I'll do is I'll do File, New. Now, the difference is, you'll notice right away, as I was explaining to Joe, is you've got what's called a Java project. And the idea with these, with NetBeans and Eclipse, is you create a project. When we're in JGrass, all we're dealing with is just the one file. And you notice I have all these files. Well, what if like this whole group of files here that I'm highlighting all belong together? They're related. Well, I could create a folder, right? And that would be my project, so I could do that. Well, you're kind of doing the same thing. You can also assign and say, I can create a project, and then all of a sudden these are all grouped together. And that's typically how it's done when you do projects in coding. You create a new project, and then you start putting all these files together in pieces. And then you're working on a piece, you're working on a piece, I'm working on a piece, and then when we're done, they all go together. And then there's your project. And now we've got this new application that's this new project out. So I'm going to do File, New, Java Project. You're going to get this funny looking screen. So what you're going to do is you're going to just pick some name. I've got a workspace already set up. You can use a default location. Some of you, if you use a desktop here, it might say your desktop. That's fine. You can always save it elsewhere. What this is called demo, if I can never do demo overload. I'm just going to copy that and go back to Eclipse, and I'm just going to paste that there. Okay. Now I don't have one already, so that's good, and you shouldn't either. Now down below, JRE is the Java runtime, is what that is. It defaults to, typically it defaults to one of the latest ones. I have newer ones, but you can leave it. I can go to an older version. And remember I was telling you that I was working with a vendor before, a consultant? They use theirs, and sometimes they would have certain versions of Java, the runtime that they would use. And so I tried to make sure that when I built my stuff, I used the same runtime. It's crazy, but sometimes if I updated my runtime to a newer version, something sometimes would not always work. So I always told them, I said, tell me what you're using. You're using Eclipse or NetBeans this version, you're using this Java runtime, you're using this, and I did everything exactly the same. And guess what? It usually works when we change files. Even something being off a little bit gets really frustrating. It doesn't always work. So in this case, it defaults to 1.8. I leave it. Everything else I'll leave. I can create separate folders for source and class files. I recommend that. Just leave the default. And all that means is when you do JGrass, how you get the class file with the Java file there, they're together. You can do that, but this way it also separates them out, because then you can just take all the Java files. And you can do working sets. We're not going to worry about that. I'll do next. Everything else, I'm just showing you this. There's nothing that you should really have to do here. You have a source folder here. You've got packages, projects. As you get further into this, it'll show you've got libraries. These are all the libraries. You can add extra libraries into your project to do different things. Some other programmer may create a library for something. Now these are all the different libraries that are built in that you can use, that are already built in that you're using, and you can see what's going on with that. We won't spend a lot of time on that right now. And then I can do finish, and it'll go through its setup, and it will create the environment for me, the workspace for me in Eclipse. Is it doing it, or did I not do okay? I thought I did. New. Did I miss something? New. Let's do this. Demo over. Oh, did I? Oh, jeez. Over exists. All right, so I'll do overload 2. Wham. Fine. Everything else is the same. I'll do that. Oh no, it's there. Sorry, I'm a knucklehead. It's right there. I was expecting something to come. So on this side, when you look in the environment, so these are all these files. I'm going to close these. Close that, because it gets confusing. You see a lot of stuff here. So all that's gone. So I've got my package explorer is called on this side. I can expand that, and I can see this is not the easiest to see. Here's my source folder, but I'm going to look under Project Explorer. There's the project also. and src is your source code. Now I've got nothing in there. I just have my project. So what I can do is I can do a new class because I created the project and I have a new class. So now in there it's going to create a class. And so for this one, you can call it the same thing. Now normally you don't. Normally you have a generic project name, accounting project, blah blah, whatever project it is. The package I'm going to leave the same, but the class name I'll call the same thing. I'll call it demo overload, like so. Use of the default package is discouraged. I'm going to use a default package. It's discouraged. That's okay. Here's some things it does automatically for you. Which method stubs would you like to create? What this means is if I select this checkbox right there, it automatically writes that code for me. So that public static void main that we write like every single time we write code, it does that for me immediately. So that's done. So I must always select that unless I don't want that one. And in this case, I do want that. So I did that. Everything else I'll leave the same. And then I do finish. And there you go. It created some code here, public class demo overload, and then it generated this, what's just called the stub. And there's my code right there. And I can, you have to get used to a lot of these different functions here. I've got the project, I can do a run, and I can click on run and I can run this. There's nothing in here, so there's nothing really for it to run. But I'm gonna cheat, and I'm gonna go in my main method here. And I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy all this, like so, come back to here. Again, you don't have to do this. You can just watch and see what I'm doing. So I got all that. I'm going to make it look nice. Just tab it. Actually, it doesn't really matter because we're going to run out of time here. And then I have to copy the other methods. So I've got 3 methods, right? 1, 2, 3 methods. Obviously, normally you wouldn't be doing this because you'd already have them. You'd be just creating it in here like that. You can also just open up existing files in here. See, my formatting is off a little bit. You know what? When it looks like that, you can do this. You do Shift Tab. Oops, Shift Tab. Leave it for now. Okay. So now everything's in here. Let's do this. So I can build. What it does is, just to let you know, it automatically builds every time. When you have code, it constantly checks your code and builds on the fly. So you really don't have to go do build and then run it. It automatically does it for you with this check mark here. So there's a lot of things that are built into it that are they're more sophisticated. It's kind of nice. If you're like, something's really screwed up with my project, I don't know what's going on, you can go in here and do clean, and it will just get rid of everything. In this case, I can clean just my one project. I'm only going to clean demo overload, clean it. And it will get rid of all your class files or anything else that maybe is messing you up. Let's do this. It's going to build. Let's run it. We're going to select sources to save. We'll do that. That's fine. Normally that should do it automatically one time. And then there you go. Same exact output as what we had in JGrasp, right? Right there. Now, there's a lot more sophisticated tools and things like that you can do with this, but that's it. That's the gist of it. So realistically, you can start writing code if you wanted to, and you can say, hey, I know Eclipse, or I know, because you do, because you're working your way around it. Nobody knows everything about everything. They just don't. It's impossible. And unless you use these tools on a regular basis, that's part of it too. So just what I would do potentially if you want, and like I said, I will accept if you want to do stuff in Eclipse and just try it out, or NetBeans, and say, I just want to try this and use it, I'll accept it. That's fine. Hand that in for your homework if you want to do it, because I know, like you said, that's what you're going to be using. That's fine. I'll accept it. If you want to stick with JGrasp, that's fine too. Not a problem. Whatever you're comfortable with. I want to make it so that it helps you. But that's it. Like you said, the code doesn't change. It's all the same. What you have, though, more is libraries and things like that here. Jars are a Java archive resource. It's a library. It's a Java library is what it is. And you can import jars. You can create a jar. You can create your own code and export it into a jar file. Then someone else can use your stuff. It's a library. That's all it is. So anyway, I wanted to show you that. I know I kind of went off a little bit there. So, but that's it. So hopefully it kind of took away any mystery to it or whatever. So there's demo overload. 3 methods there. We got that. We got that going. We got that going for us too. All right. Calling constructors, parameters. Let's see here. We got that. Something to be worried about. The book talks about ambiguity. And this can be dangerous. And I'm going to show you with this one. So what ambiguity means is you've got 2 methods, potentially. But the problem is you create another method, but the problem is it may, you don't know, it doesn't know which one to call. So watch this. I'm going to do this with this one. I'll make this full screen. So I have display date with 1 parameter. It's accepting the month, right? And you don't need to do this at all. I don't want to mess you up. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to do this. So I'm going to create another one. And instead of MM, I don't know, I'm just going to say M. Okay? So I've got 2 methods, the same method, each with just 1 parameter, and both of them are accepting integers. Okay? And I'll pretend like I'm going to do this, and I'll do M, a single M on there too. And now let's build this. And I'm going to get an error. And it's going to tell me, hey, Chucklehead, method displayDate int is already defined in class demo overload. Well, wait, it's different. And it is different, right? One's int mm and one is int m. Well, it's ambiguous. It doesn't know what to do with it. It should tell me ambiguous. But it's not telling me that, even though I did that. That's the same, that's the same, that's different. Maybe it doesn't tell you that. I thought it would tell you that it's actually ambiguous. Sometimes it'll tell you specifically, it says that it is ambiguous. That's okay. It's the same idea. We'll do that. All right. Let me do this. Let me get rid of this. Something else to watch out for. When you create your method, if you accidentally flip-flop these, right? If I did this, if I said int dd, comma, instead, normally that's not a huge deal, but you got to know it. And then, because when I call it, I'm assuming that the first parameter is the month, right? And this one's the day. That could be an issue, right? So you got to, so it would work technically. So it compile, syntactically it's correct, programmatically it's correct. I can run this. What happens when I run it? I get some wacky, right? My month and my day are flip-flopped. So you might get some bad data all of a sudden. You're like, well, what happened? Why am I getting bad data? Oh, I flip-flopped my parameters. I did that. Okay. Anyway, so you got to watch stuff like that. That happens. That's very common. You're not watching. You maybe copy and paste like I just did, and then you like throw it in there. You're like, oh shoot. So you always got to check. Again, you should know what to expect, what results you should be getting potentially, right? Let me redo that. Let me rerun it. Make sure everything's good, like that. Okay. All right. I want to see if we can get through this last, at least this one, the constructors, and then we can do the car insurance policy, because it's so exciting. And I want to leave you this Friday with just pure excitement, right? Okay. I know. Okay, so constructors. We talked a little bit about constructors last week, because constructors are typically created automatically, and I talked about how you can also do your own constructors. Java automatically provides constructors methods when creating classes, but you can create your own, and you can do fields and initialize them. Why would you do that? So they show you here an example of, I have a class called employee. Now the employee constructor is created, but in this case what you do is it will also accept an employee number in there, or ID, whatever you want to say. It's probably what it's referencing is like some type of ID number. And then if you don't give it one, by default it assigns it to 999. That's the idea. So you can use a regular constructor, but they might say, you know what? When we have these employees created in our system, we don't want them to be created with nothing. Can you, by default, create them with a value of, say, 999 or whatever? Well, we're going to send a value in. And as a programmer, you can't assume that someone's going to send a value in, because if they call the constructor but they forget to send in a value, you want to have a backup plan, and that's all this is. So it's like a default. The employee, if it don't get a value from the user, from whoever the calling program, it just automatically assigns it 999. It's just a safe thing to do. Otherwise, it might blow up. Okay? That's all that's talking about. So this is your constructor. Normally, you don't have to do this stuff. Normally, but it's also kind of nice that you can do it. You have more control over stuff when you do that way. Okay? So let's do this. I'm going to do, and I'm not going to sit because I'm tired of sitting. In fact, I'm just going to walk around the halls and code. I need that. I want to, it's like a vendor, the vendor, the hot dog vendors or the beer vendors or the ball game, they got the little tray in front of them. I want my laptop. I can walk around, have Bluetooth or something. I can just talk. Sorry. We could all do that. We could go outside. Although it's getting cold outside. All right. I'm not going to do this in Eclipse because we showed you Eclipse. I'd be happy if you ever want to go into Eclipse again, or even I can show you NetBeans next week if you want. We can do that. To give you a taste of that too. That is Eclipse. So we're going to do another one, and we're going to do overloaded constructors, and this will be the car insurance, and this is another you do it you're supposed to do. Let me double check to make sure that I'm telling you. Yeah, this is your last you do it. So if I can get the, you know what? Let me pause this for a second. I'll record it, and I might go a little fast, but. So we're going to do File, New, and we'll do the car insurance policy, Java. Okay. And we're going to do Public, Class, Car Insurance Policy. Open curly, close curly. And again, the reason I make those so close together is just because I know we're going to have so much stuff. And then we're going to create the 3 variables. And these variables are going to be private. Remember private? They're private to this class. So private int policy number, private int num payments. And again, these are not the way I would name the variables, but I'm going to keep them because I don't want to confuse from the books. And then find private string. Now we got a different data type. The string is again resident city, like so. Residenti, not residenti. Resident city, like so. Okay. All right. And so one is actually it's gonna be 2. One is the class and one is that. So I'm gonna save this car insurance policy.java. There's 2 files with this. I'm gonna overwrite my file. So this is just car insurance policy. I'll make it bigger so you can see it. And then we're gonna create the 3 methods. So this will be the class, and the other one will use it. And again, if we run out of time, I'll let you finish it. There's not a lot of code, but there's enough that we might not finish. And so public, this is car insurance. We'll do some copy and paste too to make it quicker. Car insurance policy. And this is int num, comma, int payments, comma, string, space, city. Open curly, close curly. And this, they're actually setting values here. So policy number is equal to what? Remember, num is getting passed in here, so that's what's going there. Hopefully you remember some of this stuff with the classes. It gets, once you do it enough times, you'll see the pattern. Policy number, num payments, which is up here. I'm going to copy and paste that, is equal to what? That's the payments that's being passed in here again. And I'm copying and pasting because I'm lazy and I don't want to make a mistake. Resident city, copy that. And that's going to be the city. So that equals the city. So I have 3 different things that are being set up in this one method. And this one's going to have all 3. So guess what? We're going to have 2 more methods. Yes. They're going to use only, one is going to use 2 of these arguments and one will just use 1 argument. So for sake of time, and we'll just copy the whole thing. And guess what? We're going to paste it. So the second one, we'll get rid of city. This is easy, you just get rid of that. And the city, for city, instead, you're going to just do hard code the city of Mayfield. Like so. And that's it. Now this you can build. You can't run it, but you can build it to make sure that your syntax is correct. And I would recommend maybe doing that, making sure you didn't miss a curly brace or something somewhere. These are small enough that you can see the curlies here and here. If you want to, again, you can do the end, blah, 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 if you want to, however you want to get in the habit. I'm not going to type it every time. And then finally, we can do one more. I can copy this whole thing. And guess what? We can paste that. So this one is the last one. It's only one parameter, and it's only policy number. So we're going to get rid of the payments. And the policy number is going to be 2. I mean, the payments is going to be 2. So hard-coded in this one is num payments and the resident city. Okay, and then finally we have one more method we're going to do. And this is going to be the display. There's always a display, right? Public void display is going to come up. It's not returning anything. It's just a plain old one. It's just going to print out some values. And it's going to print out, now it's going to print out a long stinking print statement. I'm going to do it in multiple lines because I don't like these. I think students get messed up with all this stuff. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say policy number quote plus, and what is the policy? Now here's the thing. If you can't remember the exact verbiage of it, the book has it, just do this. Just get policy number up here, copy it, paste it. System.out.println. This one is the num payments. So fine, I'll say, I don't know, heck, number of payments. Like so. And again, if you don't remember the actual variable, it's up there. Num payments, it's at the top. Close that up, and then finally, system.out.println, and this one is city, right? Just say city plus, and then again, resident city is at the top, copy, and come down here and paste. Yay, like so. Again, I'm going to build it, make sure everything is hunky-dory. Cool. Remember, I can't run this. It's a class file. It's a Java class file, so you cannot run this. You can build it, and everything builds, and that's great. And that's it. So this file is car insurance policy, and it's got 3 methods of car insurance policy. I'll make them smaller. One with 3 parameters, one with 2 parameters, one with 1 parameter, just like before. And then we're going to display. So now we're going to do, guess what? We're going to create one more file. We have to use them, right? So we created car insurance policy, and now we're going to create a class called create. So public class create policies. Policies, is that right? Yeah. Open curly, close curly. Now we get our public static. Now you'll notice if using NetBeans or Eclipse, it will have already created the public static void main for you. Void main, but this isn't a big deal to have to type it. It's just, as developers, we start to get lazy. We want to do everything for you. And pretty soon Skynet will be built, and it will be programming everything for us, and then we will have no lives, and we will all be imprisoned, right? Oh, did I say that on tape? Oh, sorry. I didn't say that. All right. We're going to create the class. Remember to create an instance. Oh, I'm going to save this first. So the class is called, it's called createpolicies.java. Save it. I'm going to overwrite mine. So now all we're going to do is call the policies and use them. That's it. We're going to create instances of them. And how do you do that? Remember, it's the name of the class. What's the name of the class? If you don't remember, it's car insurance policy. Copy that puppy and paste it. And you're going to want to do that. So I copied it because I'm going to have to do it multiple times. The car insurance policy, guess what? First, very original, just like before, equals new car insurance policy. I'm going to make it smaller so you can see it better there. Okay. Now, for the first one, we have 3 different methods. So we can pass it 1, 2, or 3 methods. And they're going to do for the first one, they're just going to have you pass one argument. 1, 2, 3. You can then copy this whole thing. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'll make a line just so it's easier to see. And then this one I'll do second. See the pattern? And this will be just, guess what? 4, 5, 6. So 4, 5, 6. And then the second parameter is num payments, and that's 2. Now, if you want to, what I will do sometimes is, just so I remember, is I might go to the original go to the original one, and I might do something like this. Take the first line, which has everything in it, go back, come in here, // and put that in there. And guess what? Now I can see what's potentially the most that would be passed from the other class. And again, do the same thing. Copy, paste. Darn it. Okay, and then this one is 789, and they're going to change the payments. Payments is the second parameter, so that's, they're saying what, 12, and then they're going to do a city name. The city is Newcastle, like so. So now I'm calling all of these, but now I want to display them, and that's why we created that display routine, right? And all you got to do is, you have the instance of it, right? First is my instance, dot, call the method of that class. And what was that method? The method was called what? It was called display. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's Friday. I'm just getting giddy. Okay. And yes, we can cheat again. This is not cheating. This is efficiency. Sorry. Second. You should see me when I argue with myself. It's not a pretty sight. After a night hopped up on M&Ms and Mountain Dew, it's not a pretty sight at all. Third. Okay. I live on the edge. Yeah. So first, second, third. Let's build it. I can't believe we're actually gonna, oh, I screwed up. What did I do? Yeah. This is the beauty about cut and paste. This is when I screwed up, right? I have a duplicate. Third. Oops. All right, let's do it again. All right. Surprise, surprise, surprise. It built. If you build it, they will come. There we go. Not very pretty, but it shows it. So policy, first one is policy 123, 2 payments may fail. And the second one is 456, 4 payments may fail. And the last one is 789, 12 payments and city Newcastle. But at least it shows you that it's doing what it should be doing with your output. And we actually got it done with 2 minutes to spare. I'm going to pause that. There's a couple more items in the book about this reference, using this reference with classes. I encourage you to read through that on static fields. At the end, there's another you do it that I do not ask you to do, about the dog triathlon, which is hilarious because I like triathlons and I have dogs, but we've not done a dog triathlon, so it's actually pretty funny. My wife does agility. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, where they see on Animal Planet where they jump over jumps, they go through hoops, they go up A-frames. It's really kind of fun, actually. That's why this is kind of funny, but I don't ask you to do that one. Any questions? We have a minute left before the message will self-destruct. We're good? Okay. Like I said, if, I'll pause this. If you've got into this really quick, just to make sure we're okay. Our schedule, you guys have been great. Great, yeah. Why is it not doing that? There we go. So this was unit 4. So you have until the 14th to finish up the other stuff, to finish it up. And then we'll have 1 more week. Next week we'll do decisions, and then I'll give you a break with the assignment, but then we'll have the midterm after that. So, and like I said, for the midterm, you don't have to come in. I'll put it out online. It'll be up to you. And we'll talk after that. When we come back after that, we'll talk about the project and that kind of thing. And hopefully you don't eat too much turkey at Thanksgiving. If you eat turkey, that you don't forget everything.